Hello, everyone. It's the Secondary Heroes podcast. We've been reviewing Wandavision all season long, and now it's time to figure out what's going on with the show as we head into the season finale and figure out all the mysteries before it actually airs. And so, again, this entire show, keep up if you can, is based on Wanda and Vision. And so they're part of a couple. There's two people, and then they have two kids. And they're twins. And it turns out that Wanda also has a twin brother, Pietro. So that's twos and twos. And why do those twos matter? Well, because in minute 353 of episode 3, we see that Wanda and Vision live at 2800. And so that address matters because that's the indication of what version MCU is at. So in the comics, it's Earth 616. But in the MCU, it's Earth 2800. So where do we get the 8 from? Well, it turns out Maximoff has 8 letters in it. But that's not all. Guess what? Agatha Harkness, the friendly neighbor, her name has 8 letters in it too. But Mephisto, he has 8 letters in it too. So we got 28, but where do the double zeros come from? Well, that's indicated of the twins. It's a 0 and a 0. First, because they might be soul pieces, but more importantly, just simple twins, just like Wanda and Pietro. And so now, why does it matter that we're Earth 2800? Well, that's because we've introduced Bewitched on the WandaVision show, and it includes Agnes Moorehead, who plays Endora, the mom. And so now Bewitched is part canon. And since the real actor's name is Agnes, that's how we get Agnes's name, which is her pseudo nickname for Agatha Harkness, who we find out was messing with Wanda all the time, and based on the comics, has a big impact on Wanda's ability. So now she's a key player in this entire show, and it's all because Bewitched is part of the MCU. But why Agnes? Why Agatha? Why does it matter? Well, look at the first 2 letters. It's an A and a G. What is AG? Well, it's the periodic symbol for silver. And why does silver matter? Well, it turns out silver is a big deal. First of all, you have Quicksilver. Again, it's Wanda's brother. Or he could be Pietro, however you want to describe him. He's Quicksilver. But then it's also part of the Silver Age of comics. And the Silver Age of comics is where Wanda and Vision were first introduced in 1964 and 1968, respectively. But that 47, which is the periodic table number of silver, indicates Avengers West Coast number 47. This is the series that a lot of the inspiration of the show comes from. And in this issue is the first issue that Billy and Tommy go missing. And Billy and Tommy are key because they play into our big bad guy that we might eventually get to. But before we get there, this comic series also introduces when Vision is White Vision. And at the end of episode 8, we get White Vision. Interestingly enough, though, silver, you would think would be different than white, but silver is actually based on the Latin argentum, which in Latin means white. So interestingly enough, even though our common misconception about silver is the actual color, it's based on white. So they're all tied together, but silver is also the color of dead Vision that we get to see at the end of episode 3. And so as you see, silver all has a big, huge role. But guess who can manipulate silver? Magneto. And not only just Magneto, but Ian McKellen is Magneto. And why does he matter? Well, because he's actually the parents of Wanda and Pietro. And not only that, we know that Pietro, this is actually Pietro, he's from the Fox universe, and that's why we have Ian McKellen. And Ian McKellen as Magneto matters because he's a mutant. Why do mutants matter? Because there's Monica Rambeau. Why do mutants even possible? Because of Darcy, who's now friends with Monica, and she tells us about cosmic microwave background radiation. Why does that matter? Well, that's the source for Reed Richards of Fantastic Four, who John Krasinski could potentially play and might possibly play because of Randall Park, who is Agent Wu, and Randall Park was Agent Jim on The Office, because they're all entirely connected. But then what does that mean next? Well, we also have Reed Richards being potentially a friend of Monica, and they both could potentially be mutated by cosmic microwave background radiation. And once we have mutants in the universe, we realize that it's all because of Wanda's manipulating the Mind Stone. And why does the Mind Stone matter? Because it's a rock. But rock, how does a rock tie into this? Well, it turns out Mephisto is a big important person, but who exactly is Mephisto? Well, it turns out that Randall Park is on the show called Young Rock, which is based on Dwayne Johnson's childhood backstory, and he plays himself. And so why does that matter? Well, Randall Park, again, as Agent Jim, as potentially filling in for Jim, could mean that he's a Skrull, and it's just an impersonation. And so why would Skrulls matter? It's because of Monica Rambeau. She's from Captain Marvel when we were first introduced to Skrulls. And so it's all tied together. And so now we have the rock, which is tied to a Mind Stone, which is creating life itself, which are these two little boys right here, Tommy and Billy. And if they're actual pieces of souls, those are tied to the Mind Stone. It means they're souls of the stone, which means that Mephisto is actually The Rock because Mephisto's trying to get Billy and Tommy and bring it all back together. We're just kidding. Who knows what's going to happen? Hope you guys are excited.